And a pleasant greeting to everyone, and welcome back to our venture in the visual novel Adventure of a Lifetime. Last episode, there seems to be some reconciliation between Chisa and Hiroki, which ended in a promise for Hiroki to take her off of the Ogasawaran Islands once he is at a financial means, not only a financial means, but an age means as well. So basically, when he grows up and gets on his own, he's going to come back for Chisa. And Chisa has agreed to wait for him, to which, of course, they share some passionate things and a half dozen other things. In that episode, it was a mess. But it looks like it reconciled. And as I said in the last episode, remember, this is all scripted. So to try to pull some type of emotional and passionate stunts out there in the real world with that kind of stuff, not a good idea. Because some of the stuff they did can lead to a lot of complications, especially when stuff is not fully resolved and you just do it in the middle of it. Ask folks who are experienced in that, they'll tell you. Now, granted, there are some things where there are some emotional quarrels to where it can lead to stronger relationship. But again, that comes from proper communication and proper comprehension. It's not just communication, but it's also proper comprehension. Listening to understand, not just listening to reply. So those are one of the major techniques that are known to really help to work a situation out. But of course, you got to keep a level head. Keep your emotions in check as best as you can, and also make sure you don't take it too far. What I mean by that is keep your passionate thoughts in check, because that can cause a lot of complications. But anyways, with that, we are going to continue as, for the first time in a long time, Chisa and Hiroki are going to go scuba diving together. Chisa was a little bit nervous, and Hiroki helped to calm her down. So now it looks like they're just about ready to go scuba diving again, as Chisa has volunteered to scuba dive the sunken treasure ship. Well, not a treasure ship, but it's a sunken ship in Emily's stead because her ankle is sprained right now. So with that, let us begin. Chisa relaxed and smiled just a little as we reached the waist-deep water. Then we helped each other get our fins on.
気をつけてね!
Emily waved from the beach. We waved back to Emily before looking at one another one last time and diving into the sea. The ambient noises of wind, surf, and sand faded away as the world went quiet. We swam slowly, moving out of the inlet and toward the steep cliff that marked the edge of the relatively shallow waters. Chisa gently squeezed my hand. What's wrong, Chisa?
なんでもない.
Chisa quickly let go of my hand, but I reached out and squeezed hers back. I'm right here.
ありがとう.
Once I saw Chisa nod, I swam toward the seafloor. As we descended the steep cliff, the shipwreck slowly came into view. Now was the time to approach. But the thought made me nervous. We'd been preparing for this day for so long. Careful examination of the ship's layout and careful reconnaissance of the ship's exterior with our underwater camera. We moved closer to the ghost ship, stopping occasionally to equalize the pressure in our ears. The ghost ship waited for us quietly on the seafloor. A large hole from running aground left the interior of the ship exposed. Chisa turned on her light as she looked into the hole, but then stopped moving altogether. What's wrong?
強い海流がある. 気をつけて.
Shipwrecks had a tendency to disrupt ocean currents and turn them into stronger, more complex currents. The ghost ship was no different, so it required considerable diving skill just to get close. Luckily, I had finished my wreck diving course days ago, so together with Chisa's level of experience, it was no problem. After we made eye contact, Chisa, as the more skilled and experienced member, entered the ship first. We used the dive light to eliminate the pitch black interior. Fortunately, there weren't any large obstacles, so we were able to move through the ship with ease.
この部屋で合っているわよね。
Chisa had stopped in front of one of the doors lining the corridor, then turned back to look at me. We'd already confirmed earlier on which room Emily's father had used on the ship. Yep, that's definitely it. Chisa grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't turn. We weren't sure if the door had rusted shut or if something was blocking the door. We only knew that it wouldn't budge. Let me try. I switched places with Chisa and gave it a try. With a little added force, the door didn't just open. It came off the hinges entirely. Sediment billowed up like smoke.
Hiroki.
I'm fine. Let's wait for this stuff to clear. I set the broken door up against the hallway wall and waited for the disturbed silt to settle. Before too long, the water was clear again. Okay, let's go. Searching the room was Chisa's job. As the room was quite small, it would be easier for her to move around. Also, she was the better diver between the two of us. I was in charge of lighting her way. Wow. She pulled out a box that looked like a jewelry case from the area Emily had told us to search in. Well, there it is. When Chisa opened the small box, there was a ring inside. Yes! Chisa was clearly relieved that we found our target so easily. Mission complete. Emily's going to be so happy.
早く持って帰ってあげましょう。
We had what we come for, so there was no reason to stick around. Without delay, Chisa led the way back toward the exit. But then the whole world seemed to shift. What was that?
揺れたような気がしたんだけど。
But when you were diving, everything was always moving. It didn't help that looking through a mask added another level of distortion. But since it wasn't just me who had noticed, I was sure it had to be something else.
まただ。
Shoot! The currents are moving this ship. Chisa, hurry! Chisa rushed toward the exit. I followed and lit the way from behind to make sure she didn't run into anything.
出られた。
Just as Chisa slipped out of the ship lurched over.
ヒロキ？ヒロキ！
Oh boy. Right after Chisa made it out, the ship had tilted over. Now the exit was facing the seafloor, totally blocked. I was just glad that Chisa made it out in time, though even she had cut it dangerously close. In the worst-case scenario, she would have been crushed. Chisa reached her hand in through the tiny opening.
ヒロキ、大丈夫？すぐ助けるから。
I'm fine. Just stay back. It's not safe. If the ship moved again, she could get pinned underneath.
でも。
Don't worry, I'm fine. I said as I desperately fought down a rising panic. The interior of the ship was pitch black and much deeper than before. It felt like the pressure alone would crush me. Just stay calm and don't lose it. We'd gone over what to do if the exit ever got blocked. I just need to go upstairs and use the exit above. If there hadn't been a hole, we'd had planned on using the door on the deck to get inside. So I headed that way.
ヒロキ。
Oh no, this is all my fault. I looked over the lopsided ship, unable to think.
落ち着くのよ。こういう時の対処も考えていたはず。
Should anything happen, we decided to use the door that connects the deck to the lower levels. Oh, I think this is Chisa's point of view now. Chisa swam over to that door.
ここだ。
Chisa gave the handle a try. However, the handle was stiff and felt like it was stuck against something. Suddenly, the door gave a little, and Hiroki's hands appeared.
ヒロキ
Chisa!
待ってて、すぐ助けるから。
They tried to pry the door open, Hiroki pushing while Chisa pulled. But it would not budge
ど
anymore.
うなってるのよ、この扉。
Chisa! Chisa!
どうしたの、ヒロキ。
Hiroki stuck his hand through the tiny gap and gestured over to her. My air's running out!
まだ余裕あるはずじゃ。
I don't know. Maybe there's a leak or the tank is bad. I just know it's almost gone.
そんな。
Oh, jeez. Running out of air during a dive was a real possibility. But it's usually the result of people getting distracted and running past their original time. We'd only been down for 30 minutes. And even though you lose more air the deeper you go, the ghost ship wasn't at all that deep.
あとどのくらい持ちそうなの？
About 5 minutes. If the gauge isn't broken, I guess. Worst case scenario, they could share air by taking turns breathing through Chisa's cylinder to last a little longer. The problem was that any extra air would still be useless if they could not get Hiroki out of the ship. And if he ran out of air, then... Hiroki.
どうしよう。どうしよう。
Chisa's body went cold with fear. Should she go up for help, she wondered? But she realized she would never make it back in time.
開いて！お願い！
Chisa gave everything she had to get the door open, but it would not budge at all. If it would not open normally, they would just have to break it open. Chisa grabbed the largest rock she could find, then started hammering at the door's hinges. But even though the metal was corroded and weak, it was not strong enough to break it. And Chisa was 2 seconds away from going into full panic mode.
助けて！
Finn, if you're keeping some tabs on Chisa, now would be a good time to show up.
誰か。九太郎！
The thought of losing Hiroki sent tears down Chisa's cheeks to collect in her mask. Then she felt something push her aside.
キュキュ。
Hey! What's up, man?
九太郎！キュー！
Finn swam in happy circles. Then he noticed how upset Chisa was.
お願い、九太郎！ヒロキを助けて！キュキュキュ！
And just as if he had heard her plea, Finn pushed her aside from the door. Then he put some distance between himself and the door.
何をするの？キュキュキュー！九太郎！
Finn swam full speed at the door. A deep thud reverberated throughout the water.
何やってるのあんた！バカなことはやめて！キュキュー！
Finn shook off the force of the first impact, then turned around to give it another go. He hit the door again. A loud crack could be heard along with Finn's impact.
もうやめて！あんたが死んじゃうよ！
But Finn kept going. One hit after another, Finn continued his attack on the door. Finally, after countless tries, the door caved in. Chisa hurried over and tried to pull it
もう
open.
いい！もういいから！あとは私たちに任せて！キューキュー！
Hiroki and Chisa worked from both sides of the door and eventually got it open. Hiroki swam out of the ship, Chisa!
Hiroki!
They held each other in the water. Chisa's body, stiff with fear, went limp as relief washed over. Hiroki held her steady in the water. It's all okay now. Finn swam up next to them. He watched them gleefully, almost jokingly. Whew! Man. Sharing Chisa's air, eventually they made it back to the shallow waters of the inlet. Phew, that was close. Chisa ripped off her mask and... Oh, okay. I think this is Hiroki's point of view again. Chisa ripped off her mask and tossed it off to the side.
Kyutaro?
Finn had followed us into the shallows. But there was a huge cut on his forehead.
あんた、無茶して。どうしたの？何かあったの？
Emily called over from the beach, her voice worried. I got trapped in the ghost ship, but Finn came and got me out. Thanks, Finn. But you gotta be more careful. I moved over to my guardian dolphin and patted him gently. Finn was acting happy, but it was easy to see he was just putting on a brave face.
あんたね、海にはお医者さんいないんだから。怪我したらそのまま死んじゃったりするんだよ。
In the wild, injuries were often a death sentence. Finn squeaked, trying to reassure us. Chisa grabbed Finn and held him tightly.
でもありがとう。ヒロキをまた助けてくれて。あんたには助けてもらってばっかりだよ。
Finn rubbed against Chisa's tear-streaked face, probably an attempt to comfort her.
本当にありがとう。
What's that in Finn's mouth? Finn handed the item in his mouth over to Chisa.
あんた、これ。
It was the shell necklace Chisa had thrown away.
ずっと持ってたの？キュー太郎。
Chisa, still crying tears of relief and joy, took the necklace while Finn looked on, relieved. And then, without another moment to waste, Finn turned toward the open sea.
もう、どこ行くの、キュー太郎。待って、あんた怪我してるのよ。それに、まだいいじゃない。もう少しだけ。
Chisa started to follow after by instinct, but Finn wouldn't let her. Finn used his tail to splash Chisa. With a triumphant look, Finn swam off to make his escape. Chisa watched him leave, a look of utter confusion on her face. You know, he's probably paying you back for acting so mean before.
もう、いたずらいるか。
As if in answer to Chisa's declaration, we saw Finn leap playfully amongst the waves.
はい、これ。
After a breather back at the shop, Chisa handed the goods over to Emily.
これで間違いない？多分。
Emily stared at her family's treasure, gleaming so that you'd never believe it had been at the bottom of the ocean for 16 years.
本当にありがとう。チサ、ヒロくん。
Emily, overcome with emotion, hugged us both. Hey, hey! Aren't you injured?
そうだった。もう、何やってんのよ、あんたは。
Chisa and I helped Emily back to the chair.
これできっとパパとママの離婚はやめさせることができるわ。もしできなくても私は満足よ。あなたたちとこんな大冒険ができたんですもの。
It really was an adventure. I laughed and nodded in relief, but Chisa got angry.
笑い事じゃない。 一歩間違えれば大変なことになるとこだったんだからね。
I know that. In the ocean, danger's never far away. I really need to get more experience.
ヒロ君はまだもう少しこっちにいるんでしょ。だったら潜ればいいじゃない、千里。
Yeah. Emily was taking the next ferry back home. But thinking about that was a bit of a downer.
そんな顔しないで。きっとまた会えるわ。だって私、小笠原が気に入ってしまったんですもの。
Well, how about that?
それに大切な友達もできたしね。
Emily looked at Chisa. She seemed kind of anxious.
そんな捨てられた子犬みたいな目しないでよ。ありがとう千さ。ヒロ君も本当にありがとう。
I just hope you can save your parents' marriage. Emily hugged the ring to her chest and smiled, clearly convinced her plan was flawless.
こら、いつまでくっちゃべってんだい。店開けるよ。
Yeah, yeah.
忙しい忙しい。
And so the curtain fell on our summer of adventure. Okay, so this episode is pretty much out of time, but I'd say probably, I'm not sure how much longer it's going to go, but we'll see how it ends from there, but we're going to call it here. So with that, I want to thank everyone for watching this episode this time around. If you like what you saw, maybe consider leaving a like, and if you'd like to see more, maybe consider subscribing. And until next time, happy mixing, everyone.